want to chime in what's happening with your favorite KFAN shows, you can. You can make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. So let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. It's 64686, standard text message and data rate supply.
Sierra Nevada Brewing Company is always the fine sponsor of the weekly Ben Leber experience on the Bumper to Bumper program. He joins us now via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. Let me ask you a very broad-based question before we get into some Vikings material. Let's go back to when Ben Leber was playing the game of professional football.
I think I know where you're trying to set this thing up, but let's go. Let's see if I'm accurate.
Well, you may or may not be. I think I might disappoint you, but nevertheless, here's my question. During seasons in which you did not make the postseason, your team, the team you played for, did not make the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
Did you completely tune out the rest of the playoffs? Want to get as far away from the TV, from the plasma, big screen, 4K that you could, or were you completely and utterly committed to continuing to follow your game?
God, that's a really good question because I think it is situational. I think it's kind of like how you exit the playoffs. If you're so close, or you lose on a sour note, I feel like when I look back, there's been seasons where I'm like, I don't care. I'm sort of pouty and I'm petulant and I'm juvenile, and I'm like, I don't care. We're not a part of this. I don't want to watch it. I'm so done. I'm out of here. Let me just go on vacation and I'll superficially keep in touch with the NFL. And then there's other years where, I'm into it. I'm like, all right, I think this team's gonna win or whatever, and I kind of follow a little more closely.
How about the year where you were unfairly called for pass interference and therefore deprived the opportunity to participate in the biggest of all the games?
Well, that one was a little tougher, but a little easier because there was only one game to watch. So it was hard though. I actually do vividly remember watching that and having that feeling in my gut. Of how sort of painful it was to watch the Saints go out there and win a game in which we all knew that talent-wise that we would have beaten the Colts.
Right.
Like, it was like, all right, we got to get through this game.
Yep.
I mean, we certainly weren't overlooking the Saints, but like once the game was over and everybody knew what the matchup was going to be, like, well, we would have stomped the Colts, and I think we would have beat them more convincingly than the Saints did.
All right, and that wasn't the question. That wasn't where you thought I was going. Is that fair?
No.
Well, where did you think I was going? Because I'm curious.
It's fine.
Because maybe we should go there next.
Well, it sort of is all going to work out in the same way, but
okay.
I thought that you were going to lead into, because I did get in my car a little earlier.
Oh, okay.
So I did hear you tease the fact that we were going to talk about McCarthy's injury and all that other stuff. So I thought it was going to be injury related.
I see. Okay.
Just to kind of tee up the next topic. Either way, I know that we're going to get to the same spot.
Yeah, the injury one interests me because I don't want to mischaracterize, because I don't think I heard what you said live. I'd rather have you, explain exactly what you said. It's, I think, gotten a pretty good amount of attention. And what Johnny Athletic said, look, when an ex-player goes down the road that Ben did, it's going to get my attention because he's played. He's indeed been out there. And I'm trying to get a read on exactly how you felt about McCarthy pulling himself, what you think it means, and then we'll kind of go from there, because I have a couple follow-up questions as well. How did you take it at the time? Do you feel about it the same way now that you did at that moment? What do you make of it?
I think certainly the 24-hour cooling off period has certainly been in play for me, so I don't maybe feel as strongly about it as I did a day ago. But I will just say it like this. Here's the comparison. How do we look at the way Carson Wentz played and the way that he was going about his business, with all of us as fans knowing that his shoulder was pretty messed up. Now, we didn't know the severity of it. We just knew it was pretty messed up. We saw him scramble out of the pocket, lower his shoulder, take a hit, and then writhe in pain, and then get up, dust himself off, and go play another play. In hindsight now, I think that we look at that characterization of a football player differently than when you look at a player that pulls himself off the field after one pass. Again, I know that medically he has stress fracture or a stress fractures. And, I also know that stress fractures sound maybe worse than they really are.
Right.
I don't claim to know the full injury. There might be some ligament issues. I'm sure they checked that all out. But when I, as a former player who has been around and heard about a lot of injuries from players, suffered injuries myself, when it has to deal with a bone, and most of the time with a bone injury, if the doctors and orthopedics say you're not going to further hurt yourself by playing, it's a pain tolerance thing. Well, guess what? Most guys do whatever it takes to play through the pain, because proving toughness in a locker room matters.
Yeah.
It may not to a lot of people out there. It may not for a lot of people's jobs, but internal respect is something guys crave and they try to earn all the time. And I think any player that prematurely pulls yourself off the field in that manner in which we saw, I didn't like it. I didn't like the optics of it. I know that's like toxic masculinity, man, but in the NFL and in football, in the physical game, I think that stuff matters.
Yeah, no, it's an honest answer. I mean, what I was talking about earlier, and I don't know if I was doing this during the show or during a break, because Common was around here a couple times because he keeps forgetting stuff. He tends to forget things, so he ends up being back in the studio. What I said was, the part that doesn't add up to me is that I would assume that by now, McCarthy has to realize that one of the things that's working against him, let's leave aside performance for a moment. One of the biggest things working against him is just whether he's available to play, right? And so that I would think, given that circumstance, he'd say, the last thing I want to do is leave this field, even against a team playing mainly second stringers or third stringers, whatever they were, because playing time is my currency right now. I got to be out there whenever I can, presumably, confirming the notion that I can stay out on the field. So part of me says, well, if he knows that in his head, he must have felt something was really wrong for him to still pull himself out of the game. Does that make any sense?
So it makes sense. I guess the thing that we'll never know, and it's probably unfair for me to assume this, but I also think that it's human nature, given the circumstances of this whole season and the way that you laid that out. It is probably accurate to assume this, but let's just say that this game was not for nothing. Let's say this Green Bay Packers game was a game in which you win and you're in the playoffs. Does J.J. McCarthy take himself out of the game on the first pass of the second half?
Right.
We'll never know. We will never know. But if everybody internally can maybe look at this now and say, like, no, he would not have taken himself out. Like, he would have gutted through it. Well, that's kind of my answer. That's kind of where I'm going with this. It's like, I don't care what the game circumstances are. Like, you've got a bigger picture that you have to kind of consider and think about here. And I'm with you. I think that's this self-awareness part that I think was sort of lacking in that specific moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And now I think I had a very different reaction than you did, although I don't want to speak for you, regarding the taunting penalty. I hated the play. I don't think he looked tough. I don't even think, now again, you're the ex-player, so you can tell me that, no, that's exactly what players like about other, they gravitate towards that. That just looked awkward and stupid and unnecessary for a guy who hasn't really established enough for me as a quarterback to go down that particular road. But were you as bothered by it as I was?
I got to be honest. In the moment, I wasn't as bothered. I would rather be in that world, and I think I've used this same terminology, maybe even regarding McCarthy. I would rather say whoa than go. And in those moments, I think that's a teaching moment that does not bug me as much, because I do agree with you. Like, I think in totality, like, there's an establishment, a reputation that he still has to earn, and he's still building towards. And I don't think in that moment that you need to taunt a player in a game situation like that when you really haven't established much clout, So I completely understand why a lot of people are turned off by that. I myself was like, I still like the piss and vinegar out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I still enjoy that. I think that is something that can be honed and not something that needs to be taken away. Which is exactly why I think there is a lot of optimism from me towards him with the future of this organization, because I do there is that fiery intensity. I do think is real. I really do. I don't think that that's manufactured. I don't think that's something that he has to conjure up. I think that that's real, and I think that's something, as long as he can harness that and use it in the right way going forward, like to the point where it doesn't get him all out of sorts processing the next play or whatnot. I think that's an intangible that we should be excited about. Like, we've got a fiery quarterback that in the fourth quarter of a big game is going to bring it and bring that extra intensity.
Do you have any trepidation, any reason to believe that Brian Flores will not be the defensive coordinator of the Vikings next season, even if he does not receive a head coaching job?
See, that's really difficult for me to say, because I just don't. I would not understand maybe the mechanics behind the scenes of why he would make a lateral move. And I know that a week ago it was floated around that it's possible that he was going to end up with Dallas. And I thought, man, why does he want to walk into a toxic situation where the head coach is looking at himself as a lame duck coach, and he's the coach in waiting? I don't think that he would take that job, and I don't think that he'd take that job kind of anywhere. Everybody looks at him as a next head coach. So why would he want to walk into that situation if it's not a head coaching job right off the bat? I think that he wants a head coaching job, and I can't imagine he'd take a lateral move.
All right. Well, I don't know. It's we're gonna have Seifert on tomorrow. We had John Krasinski on earlier, and I just keep getting these. It's very vague, but I keep getting this sense that there's something else. And I don't want to create controversy where there isn't, but I just feel like this should be automatic, again, if he's not going to be in the head coaching derby, that, the deal's already done and he's here. Now, maybe tomorrow it'll be announced and this will go away. So we'll see. But it kind of interests me, and it kind of intrigues me, because I can't imagine a bigger loss to this team if he's not running the defense again next year. Can you?
No, I can't. I mean, short of, a freak Justin Jefferson injury in the offseason that takes him out of 2026. I mean, I can't think of a tougher situation to come back from. The other thing is when you look at the potential loss of Brian Flores, do you really want to change the scheme? Like, every one of these, the coordinators and offense or defense, like, you bring in your own style,
sure.
You have your own players that kind of fit what you do. I think what he does is so unique. It's not just about the pressures. It's not just like the frequency of blitzes and the creativity of some of the disguises. It's the guys that operate within that system that makes it unique. And so I think that you must bring in a protege, somebody that's on the staff right now, elevate somebody that has the same mentality, that's going to run the same scheme. Because if you switch up schemes and now go to a true base 4-3 or something like that, or even just a modern 3-4 front that doesn't have all these moving parts and components, I don't think that you're going to get the best out of some of the players. I mean, Andrew Van Ginkel, I think is a prime example. They changed the defense after B-Flow left. When he left Miami, Gink did not have as much production in this new scheme. And then he comes here and he picks up the production right back to where he was in the same type of tenacity that B-Flow fell in love with when he was at Miami. So how many of those guys would get affected by a switch up in scheme? I don't know. Something I actually don't want to have to figure out next year.
Ben Leber joining us on the Fan. A lot of good texts coming in. We're going to try to include a few of those as well. So we've got, it appears, two players who might be calling it a career. CJ Ham, you had a nice conversation with him. I happen to be listening via the iHeartRadio app right after the game. And obviously Harrison Smith. Did you come away from the pomp and circumstance during game and post game utterly convinced that they are both done as Minnesota Vikings, or do you think in any way that at least in the case of Harrison Smith, the door might have been reopened just on the basis of what seemed to be, a great end to the season for him on the field?
Yeah, I think that the beauty of hearing both of them talk about their potential last games and kind of the swan song that they got yesterday, I think the contrast in their answers does help us answer the question for each one of them, meaning that the way that Harrison was talking, he sort of felt like he was leaving the door open for the perfect situation for him to come back. Maybe not in a full season capacity of 17 games, but I don't feel like he's closing the door on a return either to the Vikings if they're in a playoff push, or some other team that's in a playoff push that fits his style of play, versus I don't think anybody heard those terms and those words and any sort of nuance to his answers out of CJ Ham. CJ Ham seemed much more just declarative and appreciative for his time as a player within the Vikings organization. So I feel like CJ's probably done, regardless of who comes calling next year, and I feel like Harrison Smith is leaving that door open.
I should say one other Harrison Smith question for you. I want to talk about Seifert. Talk with Seifert about this tomorrow too. So, is there a way for you to translate to us rubes out here when there's ongoing conversation about just how much authority Harrison Smith has been given in this defense, in what is called, one presumes? How does that work? I mean, is that true? Are there examples you can give us where, so is it, B-Flow makes a call, but then Smith has, I won't say veto power, but the power to go in a specifically different direction because he's got all this moxie and they've given him this much authority? How does that work?
So I would say my best guesstimate is it's more about what happens during the week. It's more about B-Flow has a system. He has, let's say, a strong safety on the diagram. And obviously this is not something that just happened this year. This is something that probably was implemented, in their time before the season even starts, as he's already built that trust. So, it's like, here's the diagram. Here's what the strong safety or said safety is supposed to do. This is your spot. This is what I want the guy to do. And then I can see Harrison Smith saying, hey, we did this last year, and I think I can actually start in this spot over here because we used to do this a lot, and this would be a good disguise. Trust me, I can make it to my final spot. And B-Flow being like, yeah, you're right. I've seen you do that. If you can do that here, that'll give them a great look. I think it's more of conversations and dialogue that's like that versus they're on the field, B-Flow gives a defensive call, and Harrison's like, yeah, no, we're going to change it. Just trust me, we're going to do this coverage, and we're going to roll to this coverage, and I'm going to play this corner spot, and this guy's going to replace me. I think a lot of it is done more so during the week, and that's how they learn the flexibility of how to, cheat the defense using a veteran player.
Hop Splash, player of the game?
Yeah, this one's, I think, pretty easy. I'm just going to give it to CJ, and Harrison Smith.
Okay.
Just for all the things that we just talked about, legacy and appreciation for their game, the way they've handled their professionalism, and the way that I think that they truly are going to leave a mark on the organization many, many, many years past today. And few guys get to do that. And I think those are two guys that, 20 years, 30 years from now, we're still going to remember and appreciate how they approached the game and they respected the game. So my Sierra Nevada hop/splash players of the game, CJ Ham and Harrison Smith.
That would certainly, I think, make some sense. What's the official Ben Leber position on what seems to be a growing consensus that even if you believe in JJ, even if you believe that it's much too early to give up on him, that there has to be a hedge, and that the hedge has to be better than, Sam Howell or even Carson Wentz, even if it's hard to thread that needle to get a guy who would be willing to do it, who's good enough to be a good option, a veteran option at the quarterback position? Or are you ready to say, no, I've seen enough from JJ. I'm more worried about, obviously, availability, but I want him to still be the clear number one and not be all that concerned about a hedge bet. What do you think? What's the best, I think, you believe, approach for the Vikings going into the next season?
Unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot of options. We don't have the grace of just saying, well, this is our new stance and this is what we're going to do. We're going to bring in a veteran quarterback that can push him and actually put him in the world of earning his spot. May the best man win, and actually build the competition with a true veteran that's kind of been there, done that can run the same system. There aren't a lot of guys out there. I'm going to be really, excited to see who they bring in, because I don't think that guy really exists right now. That's going to give a lot of people a lot of excitement of oh yeah, this is the guy, and he's really going to push him. I think it's going to be oh, well, that's kind of the best that we could get, and let's hope that McCarthy continues to develop. I know that everybody wants to make the big trade with San Fran, and in that situation, I don't know why you would want to bring a guy in on a 1-year kind of prove it deal.
Right.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't think that he would be happy with that. And then if you're going to be splashy, and I know everybody's talking about Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Well, if that happens, well then McCarthy's probably not even on the team.
That's true.
You don't bring one of those two guys in and say, oh yeah, you got an open competition. No, you probably gave up the whole house to get one of those two guys. And so he's not in your plans going forward. So you'd have to either that's part of the trade, or you find a way to move him off the team and then find another, what you think is a capable backup. So unfortunately for Vikings fans, I don't know if there is a lot of options. The best option going forward is to find the best possible candidate to push him, and just hope that he really grinds at his development this offseason, and we see a much better version of himself for 17 full games next year.
One last McCarthy question, at least for this session and maybe for this season too. Does he have to get stronger? I mean, has he got the kind of base where he could be now you're around him much more than I am, obviously. And I know he's not he's not Doug Flutie. He's not 5'9" or anything, but he just doesn't seem to me to have a very strong physical presence. Is that something he can do? Does he have the kind of body that allows him to do that, or is that meaningless to you?
No, I think it's meaningful. I don't know if it's the number one thing that he has to prioritize. We did see when he was injured and how much weight he actually lost when he couldn't work out and couldn't do the things he wanted with a lower body injury. So we know his weight can fluctuate if he's not conscious about it. But he is 22 years old. I mean, the same thing can be said about Dallas Turner. I mean, they still have yet to develop their man body, and they're not going to be in their prime physical shape until they're probably 25 or 26. And then you can make some just slight adjustments after that. So, yeah, of course, I think just natural evolution and natural development for a male. He's going to get stronger if he puts the work into it. Do I need him to be bulky? By all means, no.
Right.
But yeah, could he add some lower body strength? For sure. Could he add a little bit more upper body strength, a little more mass? Yeah, but I think you got to be careful about it, because I sort of still appreciate his elusiveness and his quickness on his feet. I mean,
yeah, you don't want to lose that.
Positive from yesterday's game.
Right.
You don't want to lose that, because, that's one of the reasons why you got him, because he's athletic and he can move around.
Who is our number one running back next season?
Probably somebody that they draft or they pick up free agent wise. I love Jordan Mason for what he is, in spot moments, but I'm not convinced that he's RB1 and sort of the bell cow running back. So I don't think that he's on our roster right now.
Interesting. All right. So what's Ben Leber's plans now that he will not have to mess with this program every Monday between 4:46 or 4:47 and about 5:12?
Well, unfortunately, and I do this the last couple of years since you've been so nice to have me on your program at 4:47 every Monday, I will be pulled over on the side of the road coming home from work in the fetal position crying at 4:47.
No question. Well, look, here's what we'll say. Open invitation. I mean, you can always call the hotline if you hear something stupid or outrageous, or you just feel like, you need a little bit of the boost. We'll be, and it doesn't have to necessarily be at the same time. It could be a different time too.
Wow, an open invitation.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And I heard you say earlier when you actually brought me on, I think you said the Ben Leber experience.
Yeah, that's
wow,
right.
I feel like we've graduated. There's no experience.
It's a different level. Yeah, when it becomes an experience, it's just well beyond. It's not just an interview anymore. It's not a conversation. It's a Leber experience. Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, now I feel like we got to pay that off by being on your show a little bit more.
Okay.
My goodness.
Oh.
I mean, what do you want to talk about? You want to talk like Venezuela? You want to talk walls? You want to talk immigration? What do you want to do?
I don't want to
talk just football. What's going on?
No, we can
kind of cover everything.
We can broaden it out. Yeah, that's what Glenn. If it was up to Glenn Mason, that's what he would be on like 3 hours a day, and we would talk almost no sports, because I don't even think he watches football anymore, but he wants to talk about everything else. And I say, well, I tell Mason,
like two old dudes just sitting at a coffee shop,
that's it,
solving all the world's problems.
That's pretty much it. Thanks for another great year, and we will, like I said, maybe bug you a little bit for some playoff expertise as we get closer, but we'll try to give you a little time off as always. Thanks, Ben. We appreciate you.
And thank you. Seriously, thank you for having me on, and it's always a great chat. I enjoy the angles that you ask, the questions and the topics that we talk about, and always a great time. And again, I appreciate Sierra Nevada for all their help.
100%.
As well. So appreciate it, man. Enjoy the playoffs.
Thank you, my friend. That is Nacho Leber, Ben Leber, brought to you by the fine folks at the Sierra Nevada Brewing Company. Have been an outstanding sponsor of this segment for pretty much as long as I can remember. We'll pause. Don't forget, bonus Pat Kessler. He's going to be in studio beginning in about 15 minutes.
The Wild look to take two and give none in L.A. as they battle the Kings tonight. Puck drop just after 9:30 p.m. Your every goal, every save, every game-changing moment right here on your home for Wild, KFAN.
Kessler in the house yet? Haven't seen him?
I haven't spotted him yet, no.
Oh, there he is. He's in Studio C. So he's going to join us in just about 10 minutes. The governor of the great state of Minnesota. Well, I was about to say make big news. It sounded like it was kind of breaking last night, but in that sense, pretty significant departure from previous positions taken. And then the governor made it official today. There's already a number of very tantalizing, juicy conspiracy theories being offered up about the grand plan here. And we'll get special case view on that and a number of other things. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line will be open for questions for Kessler, observations on the Walls story. 64686 is the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Playoffs are now set. Your club taking on my club. That's a Saturday night game, correct?
It is.
And
really surprised by that. I thought we'd get like a Sunday at 3.
Well, the early betting line I thought was Packers by 1.5 or 2. Now, some people think, speaking of conspiracy theories, that that's an attempt by, the odds makers to get some action, and that ultimately it'll end up being Bears by 1.5 or 2. I don't know. It is interesting to note that you've been in the 7th position. Is it 4 straight years now or 3?
3.
3 straight years. So if the NFL hadn't added another wild card team, you wouldn't have been in the playoffs, just like the Purple.
Yeah.
So you got that going for you for whatever it's worth.
You could say we're just a half game in the playoffs.
You're a half game in. Yeah. The Vikings are a half game out of the playoffs. You're 100% correct. I must also say that Sunday night game, man, that was good theater. Whether you had any rooting interest in that game, Ravens and Steelers, I don't know that it can get much richer, given it literally is the last game of the regular season. And I don't want to say we didn't need them. I really don't. I don't want to say it. I'm tired of saying it. But I was thinking it last night. I really was. And I know Rodgers, over the course of this season, hasn't been great. But I don't think they're blessed with a great receiving core. Metcalf's legit, but then he wasn't even available the last 2 games. And they're in the playoffs. And his performance yesterday was top-notch. Top-notch. The game that had to get them in the playoffs, Rodgers was great. And I've said this many times. I often selfishly make my decision on the basis of the richness of the story. And maybe that's not the sanest thinking. But I was rooting for Rodgers to come here. I think it would have been a hell of a story. There's no guarantee that it would have been successful. I get that. But I also think I was intrigued enough that I would have done it. I absolutely would have done it. And I'd stop worrying about whether I'm holding JJ back or he's going to get frustrated if you wait too long. I got to be honest. I'm especially not concerned going into next season about getting JJ McCarthy frustrated. I'm not saying he shouldn't be in the mix. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be given a chance to improve upon his first season of major activity as an NFL quarterback. But come on. Let's stop worrying about whether he's going to put him back and that's going to hold him back longer. That's not how you build a winning football team. That's really not the thing you can worry about. And as I said earlier in the show, even if you believe in him as a quarterback, even if you believe you saw enough improvement and it's just a matter of time, his lack of availability, as far as I'm concerned, demands that you can no longer worry about hurting his feelings or getting him where he might be a little frustrated here or might want to go someplace else. No chance on that. I just don't believe it. Regarding whether he should have played or not, I know Leber feels strongly about it. It comes down to this for me. I mean, here's what I will say in Leber's defense. I haven't really seen it much to give him the benefit of the doubt, him, the player, JJ, in that regard. Now, if he literally can't grip the ball any longer or can't hold it, obviously that's pretty important to when you're playing the quarterback position. But it's just axiomatic that if you can't be on the field, it almost doesn't matter how good you can be when you are. And the double whammy, I think, that McCarthy is dealing with, he wasn't good enough consistently enough to just stay tantalized and to say, we're going to be patient on the injuries. He had way too many downs for me and a couple of ups, but his overall numbers still weren't that good. And as a result, I don't know who that guy is to bring in to put pressure on him. I don't know. That's easier said than done. But I don't think it can be, with all due respect to Max Brosmer, I don't think it can be Max Brosmer. I really don't. I don't think you can experiment at this position any longer. And maybe as we go through the playoffs, maybe something will crystallize. It'll be more obvious who they might be interested in or who they might be able to get their hands on. But I just know that whether you want to have the discussion about toughness or not, if you can't be available, teams can't plan around you. They can't build around you. And if they just don't feel like that they can count on your being on the field to execute whatever grand plan, master plan that you might indeed have in mind. 612 guy writes, this is Kyle. I have to eat crow, Dan, and say I was against Rodgers at the start of the season. Now I feel the Vikings squandered an opportunity with Rodgers in a wide open NFC. That's the other aspect of this. As we talked about on sermons, it does feel wide open. It may not be. Sometimes things happen once the playoffs start and one team becomes clearly the best. But starting the wild card weekend, really on both sides, there's no one I think that you look at and go, they can't be beaten. Forget it. Why bother? And that's the other, I'm sure for Vikings fans, the disturbing aspect, frustrating aspect of this season having played out the way that it did. Let's get a pause in, and then we'll get to a very busy day in the A section. We may not cover all the international stories, but we will cover, and even some of the national ones, but we will certainly cover in a great deal of depth the big news made in the state of Minnesota. Governor Walz saying, I'm done. I am not going to run for a third term as he had pledged previously. We'll get into that, reaction to it, how it happened. Did somebody talk to him? What's the master DFL plan moving forward? And as I talked about on the News Nation today, my big break nationally, well, it might not be my big break actually, but it was fun, are the Republicans in this state who are chortling, excited over the fact that we got them. Do they need to be careful that what they wished for finally indeed came true? We'll explain next.
I wish the American media would take a great look at the views of the people in Congress and find out, are they pro-America or anti-America?
Dan Kessler. Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
I can't trust Obama. He's an Arab.
Dan Kessler.
Tear down this wall.
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Dan Kessler.
And now, to help Dan break down all the tough questions in politics, it's our own
Dan Kessler.
Political Wonk.
Do you endorse throwing wieners?
You're like a supermodel, except like times 10.
It's Channel 4's
Dan Kessler.
with Dan Barreiro on the Fan.
Emergency bonus Kessler, kind enough to join us in studio today. 64686 is the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Lots of important reaction to get to from you, but maybe the most important thing to get your reaction on is the news that Coy Parrish might be turning his back.
Come on.
On Sky U Ma. Your thoughts?
That is a gut punch. That's a gut punch. Never expected, did not see that coming. I thought he was part of the family and, the culture.
Will you turn on him, as many already apparently have in Gopher Nation, as Tim Brewster used to call it?
Well, I know that Sid would say he'll never get a job here when he graduates. So where will he go? That is the thing. So
he's not good enough for Indiana.
What if he ends up at Indiana?
Then he'd be good enough. Because in Signetti, we trust.
If he doesn't go there, he's not good enough. But if he does go there, then he is good enough.
He's more than enough.
So this raises so many questions about what's happening in college sports. And I do believe that Congress needs to get involved. But in this case, people are coming and going. Ohio State, which, as we all know, is now out of it, $35 million is what they have in their NIL program. You know, what do we have? Like $1.50?
I think we got like 250,000.
Let me say that we did buy a Coy Parrish jersey.
Did you really?
For a little bit of money. To help the young
cause.
Coy along.
Right.
Well, we bought it from the family.
And then he turned on.
We bought it from the family. Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. So, but he's left the door open, and I'm not exactly sure what that means.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Not much.
So, in retrospect, I'm an idiot. I know that. After the bowl game, they have the post game.
Mm-hmm.
The comments from the players.
Yes.
So they got Drake and they got Jordan and they got we have an NFL defensive end. We have that, but he wasn't there, and I didn't. I never thought about it, and now because they're all coming back, they're announcing they're coming back, and he wasn't there. So, yeah, I feel bad about it. Wish him well, I guess.
It doesn't sound like your heart's
But I
in
feel
it.
bad.
Yeah.
I feel terrible about it because, I had a lot invested in him.
Can you blame him
emotionally
for wanting to have the opportunity to play for a national championship?
Well,
in all seriousness,
good luck with that.
Oh, the gauntlet thrown.
That's all I'm going to say.
That's all you're going to say.
I mean, I admire the guy a lot. I mean,
okay.
So what are you going to pick? You're going to go to, I guess, LSU next year, right? With Lane Kiffin. He'll be.
A lot of people think Miami and maybe Ohio State.
Don't go to Miami. Do not go to Miami.
Yeah, good program, good NIL, not a bad place to hang. You don't have to worry about an ice storm in Miami.
Yeah, true enough. And I'd go to Miami today.
Yeah.
But there's that. But I mean, what's the culture on the Miami team? So I don't know. The Canes, sure.
Then
Alabama, they're one game away from the national championship.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty good culture.
But are they going to be one game there? I mean, who are they playing? Indiana?
No.
What's it?
Indiana's.
They're playing Oregon.
Old Miss.
Sorry, what am I thinking? Yeah. Oh, Old Miss. Oh, shoot.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Oh, I say Old Miss.
Okay.
And Indiana. There it is.
All right. So
I feel bad, but thank you for asking. And
I want to get that out of the way first. I didn't mean to, but the story seemed to be sort of breaking last night. There was a good chance that the governor was going to announce today that he is stepping aside. He's not going to run after all for the third term. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm totally. I started the show saying I think it was sort of inevitable, but there's always the question of, well, what's going to change? What changes from the day you say I'm hanging in to the day you say I'm out? So what do your best sources tell you and your best instincts tell you as to how and why this took place?
Yeah, this is, I think, surprising, but I'm not shocked by it. So I think that's a fair way of saying, but it has so many different parts to this. How do you get to I'm all in, and all the Democrats have to join you all in how many, 4 months ago to today, where I'm getting out? Something happened in between, and I was very disappointed that he holds a press conference with the press who are there to ask questions and then doesn't take any questions, reads a prepared statement. Yeah. We will start hearing some of those answers. Something happened in between, and I suspect at this point, and this is what people I'm talking to are suspecting as well, you're starting to look at numbers now, because whatever it is, what he called today the extremist right-wing propaganda machine, over the last month with this daycare fraud, with the Feeding Our Future fraud, with the program fraud here in Minnesota, has ramped up to levels that I don't think I have ever seen, as quickly as I have ever seen. And that changed the numbers. Now, I believe that Governor Walz, who has a tremendous campaign war chest, is regularly polling. And there is a tipping point at some point where you have to say, you know what? Not only am I going to lose, but I'm going to take down the Democratic ticket with me. That is a major problem. Behind the scenes, I've been talking to Dems for a number of weeks, expressing concern about this, that Governor Walz's popularity is dropping fairly quickly for somebody as riding high as he was in August of last year as the vice presidential candidate. And so you don't just have to worry about your own campaign for governor. You've got to think about all the other statewide candidates. And if people are going to vote him down, then the other candidates are not going to do well either, including the legislature. We have a U.S. Senate seat up and all the constitutional offices. So those had to figure very, very prominently in his decision. Now, finally, he didn't talk about it today, but we've been hearing whispers about personal security and safety. This has ramped up over the last month or so, that he is taking into account because of all of the controversy over the fraud scandals and how divisive we are and polarized in our politics, that, maybe I don't want this for my family, particularly after what happened last summer, the possibility and the rise in political violence. I'm not saying that is the reason, but that is something that's back there as well. But bottom line is, if you think you're not going to win, get out. And that's what he did. Because he wasn't going to win, probably.
So I have no idea what the ongoing relationship has been, politically speaking, between Amy Klobuchar and Walsey. But where does she come into in other words, is there any chance that he is less likely to step aside if he doesn't already have inside knowledge that she is prepared to make this leap?
I have not confirmed this, but the New York Times is reporting that he met with Senator Amy Klobuchar on yesterday, to let her know that he was going to drop out of the race and wanted to gauge her interest in it. So I do think that is something that was important in his decision making. So for all of the Republicans nationally and here in Minnesota who are doing the touchdown dance and claiming they're nailing a pelt to the wall, this is something that you got to be careful what you wished for, because if she does get in the race, she is an extremely formidable candidate. So that might have had something.
I'm going to go further than that. I'm going to say if she's in the race, it's over. And that's where I've said earlier today, it's the old, be careful what you wish for if you're a Republican, because there's no question I think Walz was vulnerable. Was he vulnerable enough given the candidates out there on the Republican side? I'm not sure, but he was vulnerable. So you can say it's a political victory for you, or it's the right thing because you think he hasn't been willing to accept enough responsibility, and I don't particularly think he has. But if you want to just talk, I guess you could say strategery is
it's a political term,
a term that the late great Don King used to use too from time to time. It's a loss if she's the one. I think she is virtually unbeatable.
I think in our political climate, you never know. And so things could change from today to a month from now. But the odds are that she would do very, very well and lift all of the other Democratic candidates with her if she decides to run. Let's just say that, let's remind people that Amy Klobuchar is the top vote getter in the state of Minnesota. She has received more votes than any other candidate in Minnesota history. And that includes Hubert Humphrey. That includes all the Minnesota politicians. She won her races, and I went to look it up today. She started running in 2006 for the U.S. Senate. She won her races by 20 points, 34 points, 24 points, and 16 points. That is somebody who can be a steamroller under the right conditions. So, yes, she is extremely formidable, and that means that Republicans are voting for her as well.
Right.
That's what that means.
Yeah.
So you've got the moderates, independents, and you have a good number of Republicans voting for you for a candidate, a Democrat, who actually gets those kinds of numbers.
Why would she make this move? She has developed a great reputation and has some power in the Senate. That's big stuff.
That is a really, really good question. And I've been wondering that myself. She is number 3 in the Senate right now, and it takes years to do that.
Yep.
I think she's 66, which is like being a teenager in the U.S. Senate. I mean, everybody's like 80, right?
That's true.
But she has kept her head down, worked really hard, and she is the third-ranking person there. And there is some question as to whether she would be getting the leadership positions. Dick Durbin is retiring at 80, blah, blah, whatever he is. And she was going to run for that. But there's some question about whether she could actually get that. Brian Schatz, the Hawaii senator, is somebody who's kind of lining up the votes for that. But having said that, she comes to Minnesota, and it's my view that governors are the ones in this country who do the work.
There's no question.
You can actually get something done if you are a governor. So let's say she comes back, and I'm not saying she will, but the odds are that she might. She comes back to Minnesota. That's a pretty visible place to be. She can actually pass legislation, get stuff done. We call it in the business a freebie because she doesn't have to leave her office, the U.S. Senate. If she loses, in the unlikely event she loses, she can just go back to the Senate. She can run for office while she's a senator. If she wins, she gets to be governor, and very likely she can appoint the next U.S. senator for Minnesota. She's the one who would appoint a senator. So there you are.
So that leads nicely into the conspiracy theory offered up by a number of folks already today that the fix is in. That we're going to see Amy Klobuchar make the announcement. She's going to run for governor, and then she's going to win, and then she's going to appoint Tim Walz to replace her in the Senate. That's the conspiracy theory that has become very popular among some righties today. I don't believe it, but maybe I'm being naive. Do you believe there's any chance that sequence of events could take place?
You know, it's happened here in Minnesota already, where Wendy Anderson, and I haven't heard that till you just told me, but I'm remembering back to Wendell Anderson, the governor during the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
He resigns. He has a deal with Rudy Perpich to appoint him to the Senate. Minnesota voters were so angry about that
Good history
they
lesson.
threw him out. They threw him out as soon as they had the chance. And established Rudy Boschwitz as the U.S. Senator from Minnesota. So, although it's possible it's happened, I'd say nay.
Let me throw it out this way, because you know Amy Klobuchar. I've met her. I know her a little bit. You know her a lot. I'm going to say that, Amy Klobuchar is, how do I put this? I think she is a very savvy political animal.
Oh, yeah.
I think she gets it. I don't think she would... I believe she's smart enough to know that the damage that would do to her quote-unquote brand is not worth it. I don't think she'd go near that. I don't. I don't even think it's a possibility.
That's my gut. That's what I would tend to believe. I can't see that at all. Governor Walz remains unpopular and getting more so by the week in the state of Minnesota. So I don't know. I mean, I've seen some of the stuff that she'll appoint. And I'm just saying this, people. I'm just saying I saw it somewhere. I'm not saying this. People are hoping that she'll appoint Al Franken. Again,
that'd be a hell of a twist. That would be a hell of a twist.
It'd like come full circle to do Trump. But look, the Democrats are wielding power in a more savvy way, like President Trump does. You can love him or hate him, but this guy is wielding power like a cudgel, and when you got the power, use it. And we'll see where Senator Klobuchar goes, but there's a lot of different Democratic candidates right now running for U.S. Senate, running for Congress. There's a deep bench among Democrats that she could appoint.
Let me also ask you this, because you alluded to it, and I didn't really follow up on it. You mentioned that in the press conference today, confirming that he's not going to run, that the governor did not take any questions, correct? And
yes.
You know people on his staff. You have had working relationships with many of them. How is that the best advice that they are giving the governor at a time like this? Because it makes no sense to me. If you're going to try to make any kind of point by what you're doing, you got to answer questions as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you would think
Full stop.
Just if you want to be transparent, stand up there and be transparent. I do believe that they've been more and more in a bubble in the governor's office over the last year or so. And when Governor Walz ran for vice president, it was like they sealed him up, put him in a room, and threw away the key. I mean, we never heard from him. It's as a reporter, I always disliked that, and I think that was probably the wrong move. But I do believe that over the last year, where we have seen, you and I have talked about it dozens of times, where Governor Walz seemed to minimize this fraud issue. He never fully took responsibility for it, and tended to be defensive, as he was today, more defensive. And that indicates to me that maybe you're listening to just a few people. You're not, you don't really see the full picture. A wise man who is a big Tim Walz supporter told me today that, and who is glad that he is now stepping aside, said there's a difference between responsibility and fault. You can take responsibility and fix something, but if you say it's someone else's fault, then that's in the past and you get bogged down in all of this. And I'm not completely sure. I'm not sure that the Governor Walz ever did that. And if he did, way too late.
So Dean Phillips, I think, has said again today, I'm not running for anything. Is that correct?
That is correct. He tweeted that out and said he will support the candidate who will be the most down the middle, the most moderate, the one who listens. And there is a guy. I mean, he might have been a great candidate for governor or for U.S. Senate. Somebody who was one of the very few Democrats who spoke the truth
on Biden
about Joe Biden. And he just said what everybody could see but refused to say. So he's not running. That is correct. And there is a pretty long list, a dozen Republicans who are running for governor, and it's actually a pretty good field. I mean, there's some very, very prominent Republicans, really good candidates if they get the nod.
Can you make the argument? I don't want to get too grandiose, but could you make the argument that this announcement is the Democrats, at least within the state, acknowledging the mistake that nationally the Democrats made, waiting too long to move on Joe Biden, to such a point that it probably minimized their chances to end up winning that election, and that given this amount of time, you're clearly giving whoever's going to come, and of course if it's Amy Klobuchar, it probably doesn't matter, but whoever, more time to establish himself or herself in that position in a way that the Democrats were incapable of accepting or learning the lesson that Dean Phillips was trying to offer them, nationally speaking.
Well, who takes accountability for that? When you've got someone, a strong leader, and like it or not, Walz has been a very strong leader for 2 decades in the state of Minnesota, winning all the elections, controlling the Democratic Party in general, the DFL party here in Minnesota. And so when that person wants to be the guy, you almost have to stand aside. And you could have made the argument before this last month of fraud scandals rising. You could have made the argument that he could win, based on not just his own skill, his millions of dollars that he has, his connections, his get out the vote effort, all of that. You could have made the argument that it'd be tough, but he could have won. After that, no. And people were starting to talk to him over the last, what had to be just the last couple of weeks, where he was in it 2 weeks ago, but he has been pulling away from reporters, and so people have not really had access to him for that time. So whose fault is it? We talked about responsibility and fault. It's the person in charge who should be accountable for that.
By the way,
it might not be too. I'm sorry to interrupt, Dan.
That's all right.
This is not too late. This is way early.
No. Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, exactly. So he did his party a big favor and sacrificed himself, his political future, for the party, because it's January, right?
It is.
You've got a whole year, and it's going to be compressed very fast here. So yeah, there's plenty of time.
So what does happen to his war chest? How's that work?
Well, he can control it. I mean, he can't use it to buy groceries and a new International Scout or a classic vintage. And as you know, as we learned during the campaigns, that he can actually change the clutch on an International on the Scout,
well established,
which I can't. No, he can use it to create a PAC to support other candidates. Absolutely. I mean, that money is there. He could return it if he wanted to, but there's millions of dollars, so probably not.
Unlikely.
But yeah, I mean, he could still wield power. And we don't know, and we'll find out over the next few days, he still has a political future if he wants it. And people might not like it, but this is a guy, look at all the politicians in the state, the Democratic politicians in the state, and he's got the skill set that he could keep doing something. I don't see it. But maybe he'll end up, if a Democratic president is elected in 28, maybe he'll end up there.
Larry Mondello guy, I think you've already answered this question, but I'll ask it again just in case. Would Klobuchar keep her Senate seat while running for governor, or would she have to resign that and then resign if elected?
That is really fun, Larry Mondello guy.
I mean, that's a straight series of questions from the comedian.
I was waiting.
You're waiting for the Henny Youngman
twist.
Yeah.
I was. No, she can absolutely run. And there's a couple of ways to do it. Right now in the U.S., and I'm just recalling this right now, there are 3 U.S. senators who are running for governor. Michael Bennet, Colorado, the Democrat. Your guy, Tommy Tuberville, the coach, is running in Alabama. And Marsha Blackburn, the Republican senator of Tennessee, is running for governor there. So they will hold their seats. What the practice is, you hold your seat as long as you can. If you're elected, you can probably resign right before you are sworn in. But if she wants the ability to appoint her own U.S. Senate person, then I would hold on to it till right before you raise your hand on the Bible and do it right then. And, you know, this next person will, whoever it is, and think about this also, in the state of Minnesota, we will have, if it is Klobuchar who resigns her seat and then becomes governor, we will have 2 freshman U.S. senators. And that's something. I mean, we had one of the most experienced in the country with Klobuchar, and now we would have a freshman. So that's worth thinking about, too.
Top of the hour pause. I do want to talk about another conspiracy theory when we come back and maybe get to a couple more texts. It's bonus Pat Kessler for reasons that should be fairly obvious today. Stay tuned.
Bonus Bucks. It's back. Starting next week on KFAN. Beginning next Monday, we'll have 9 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. That's every hour from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. Enter keywords to learn more when that time comes. KFAN.com. KFAN.com.
Pat Kessler in studio for another segment, Emergency Kessler today, for all the obvious reasons. You and I have talked about this before, and there's this constant belief of, well, yeah, I know all the other things that Trump has said or done, but this goes to that next place. And then you say, but who are we kidding? I mean, how do you distinguish one from another? I will add that when the story has ramifications in the state, there's perhaps more of a feeling of, oh my God, what's the famous quote from the hearings? Have you no decency, sir? He, as I understand it, and you can fill in the blanks, the president, I don't know if this was true through Truth Social or wherever, linked to a conspiracy theory that goes back to some stuff that the assassin of Melissa Hortman, I think, had written one of his manifestos, basically suggesting that the governor of the state of Minnesota ordered the murder of Melissa Hortman. It's beyond repulsive. I hate even using that word because I don't even think words can describe it, but it almost is the 3rd or 4th or 5th one down, not because it's not horrific, but because it never stops. So which one do you decide to plant on? But in this case, given that the Minnesota connections, what can you tell us about this?
Well, it's shocking, and this is something that I'm even hesitant to talk about it because we don't want to amplify this idea that anybody had anything to do with the murders of the top Democratic person in the House, Melissa Hortman and her husband, and the shootings of John Hoffman, the senator, and his wife. We don't want people to think anything other than it is that a crazy man allegedly did this. And I was really gratified today to see after the president amplified this on his Truth Social account over the weekend, and people are glomming onto it, and people believe it. And one thing about social media is that, we say, that's crazy. Nobody's going to believe it. People believe it. They absolutely believe it just because President Trump said it. That's really distressing and discouraging. But something that I thought was really laudable, and I'm really happy to see this, is that the Republicans in the state of Minnesota, as one, were unified in their condemnation of this, asking the president to take it down. This is not about left and right. It's not about anything other than these people were murdered. That's not what happened. Prominent Republicans are saying this is just nuts. Now, you're right. We have a fire hose of craziness every day coming out of the White House. And you wonder sometimes where the bottom is. And I think we're coming to the conclusion that there is no bottom. I think we're going to get to a point where, it's just another day and we become numb to the crudeness and the cruelty of this. And that was really hurtful for a lot of people in Minnesota, including, of course, the Hortman family. So, do you shake your head? What's the proper response? Should we even talk about it? Should it be that, that's just Trump being Trump? No, we should not accept that kind of thing. We just shouldn't.
So, again, he gives endless press conferences, the president.
He does.
And yet, I'm wondering, is somebody going to at least try to hold his feet to the fire on this, or say, Mr. President, what's the upside of amplifying something that is demonstrably false, at least challenging him on it, or does it matter? Is he so slippery that it really doesn't make a difference? I
think it's really, really, I think you're not going to see that. It's very, very common for reporters who have the opportunity to speak with the president to ignore it.
Why?
Because you're going down a rabbit hole. You're going to go down a rabbit hole, and there goes your interview. You're not going to be able to ask him anything that's actually important. Not to say this isn't. This is really important. Really, really important. But if you could use your time and do that, absolutely. I'm surprised sometimes that we don't see more pushback. And when there is, and we have seen it, he says, well, I don't know, that's what people are saying. Many people are saying this. Therefore, if I say it, I'm not saying it. They're saying it. I'm just saying they're saying it. That's about where we are. So the president does not take responsibility for that, but he is quick to blame others. It's important to remember, and if I could just briefly bring it back to today's topic then of walls dropping out, you think about it, all of the things that have happened here in Minnesota in just the last few years, starting with the COVID and the uproar over that, the civil unrest, the murder of George Floyd, the murders of Melissa Hortman, Annunciation Church. These are all of the part now of our collective conversation over the last 4 years. And to have that enter in, that chaos and confusion and cruelty is just beyond the pale.
And as you said, I guess that's the only good thing you can say out of this is that the Republicans in this state have been as demonstrative in their reaction
People are unified
as the Democrats. And you'd like to think we'd be that way on more stories than that, but I guess it's because we're invested in it in a way that we say, well, what? And I think for him, I'm not even sure he gives it a second's thought, right? Because for him, it's just more red meat. I'm just going to throw it out there because and part of what concerns me is, and maybe it wouldn't matter to him, is that I think when I watch these press conferences, and I get it, you can't be open warfare in a press conference situation, but I don't even sense as much of the just sort of combativeness, the legitimate combativeness that I remember going back.
I remember
several
that too.
presidents.
Yeah.
I just feel like
Biden
all bets
and
are off.
Obama? I mean, are you kidding? Yeah, I mean, there was really a lot of that. The one that surprised me with reporters is when he said, "Quiet, piggy."
Yeah.
Why there wasn't that response. Now, gosh, I hate to go out on a limb here, but I'm gonna. I mean, on Christmas Day, President Trump tweeted or posted on Truth Social 200 times. 200 times. I mean, was he with his family at all? I mean, those are the kinds of things that I wonder about. And if we were all over Joe Biden and his cognitive abilities and his reasoning and his logic, are people going to start asking those questions? I mean, maybe that'll start popping up. And the reason I didn't want to bring it up is because I know I'm going to get hammered for this.
Yeah, well, we're getting hammered already. That's okay. That's surprising.
But this is something that, we got plenty to talk about.
Well, the subject, just a lot of the responses, the subject is getting changed from the specific nature of this accusation and all of its meaning in a case in which individuals were murdered. Public officials, elected officials, and obviously husband murdered and attempted. And so when somebody texts 763 guy, your liberal love fest is getting dull, that person, I think, is hurting himself or herself in whatever argument they're trying to make by not addressing the substance of what specifically we are talking about here in this case. If you want to eliminate all the rest of it, fine. Let's just talk about this accusation and the sickening nature of it. But I think the way you deflect is you make it about something bigger. And that's unfortunately what liberal love fest guy is doing. And that's fine if you feel better.
This is about you, Dan.
Right, exactly.
You're the one who brought it up, and so this is about you. But deflection is something that is very common now on social media, and
it is. It's played
from
that
the
way
original
the
thing.
board.
Then it becomes something that it never started as, and it gets worse.
Well, all I know is I'm glad you came in. We appreciate the time and the analysis.
Yeah, this
and
is
the
a big deal.
expertise.
This is a big deal. What's happening is
this doesn't happen every day. For sure,
it very rarely happens, and we've been following this case for a long time. And I have a feeling maybe this is a signal that this fraud in Minnesota, we're going to see more and more of it coming to light. And it might be worse than anybody thought.
Which is already awfully bad. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Pat Kessler will not be on Channel 4 at 5, 6, and 10 o'clock tonight, which, of course, is their loss. We will come back to wrap up the program. That's next.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
It's brought to you by American Pressure.
I apologize for stepping on your touchdown call. We always appreciate the support and the help from the folks from American Pressure. Good guest lineup today. Just wrapped up with Pat Kessler, Special K, emergency session with him. In addition, Ben Leber to wrap up, to put a bow on the Vikings season. A lot with him on the various, I guess you could say, dramas pertaining to the starting quarterback and maybe even the B-Flow story. In addition, on today's broadcast, Johnny Athletic joined. We actually talked some hockey early. Well, actually, it's not really hockey. We talked about ongoing X-debates raging between Johnny Athletic and Kevin Fallness pertaining with usually the starting point, the powder keg is Johnny appearance on the show being announced via X. And then that gets Fallness going. He makes a crack. Then Johnny replies with another crack. And they get going at each other pretty damn good. It may, for all I know, it's still going on. Somebody did suggest, and this is not a bad idea, and you can do something about this because you produce Beyond the Pond, correct?
That is correct.
Isn't it time for a Johnny Athletic appearance on Beyond the Pond?
Wow.
I'm being serious. I think it would be award-winning, ratings-grabbing weekend radio here on the Fan.
Bigger collision, Super Show from earlier today or Johnny Athletic on Beyond the Pond? That's
a great question.
Yeah.
That's a very, very good question. A lot of good texts coming in today as well. Tomorrow, is Guardsy back as far as we know?
That's my understanding.
We think he's back tomorrow from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm assuming we're going to have Kevin Seifert in. I hope we have him in studio to kind of do the debriefing on the season and to talk about his deep dive in the Vikings quarterback Wagnerian opera of a situation, which we alluded to yesterday on sermons as well. I'm assuming Luigi tomorrow. And who knows what else. And we are going to try to go international before this week is done. That means a date with Michael Hurley, if at all possible, our sort of international affairs expert. And, of course, he dined his own, because there's a lot to get to regarding your guy Maduro, where we might be invading next, the legal and extra-legal ramifications of all of that, and a couple of other stories as well. So we'll try to, unfortunately, we're going to have more time on our hands because there's going to be less Vikings in the immediate future to discuss. So all that will be a part of the proceedings as we get into what I think is a pretty full week, because I don't think I guess we could still be out early for Wild games or Wolves games, but Vikings programming, I'm assuming, is wrapped up, correct?
We got Vikings Rewind
tonight, right?
And that's the swan song.
When do the Wild play next?
Tonight.
Oh, they are back tonight. Okay.
I believe it's tonight.
Well, double check. It's your team.
It's not that I don't know. It's the It's the 1% in my brain that I could be wrong.
Yeah.
That makes me want to. Yeah, it's tonight. They get the Kings. 9:30 puck drop.
That's late for me. Teeth will be in the glass by 10:15. That's awfully late. Well, we'll try to work through that, and we'll talk. We talked a little bit with you about what happened to the World Juniors. We'll get Louis' reaction to that as well. Was he here for any of it? Do we know? I mean, he's the big ambassador for it, but how much was he actually here for? Do we know?
I know he is heading out because he was with Guardsy at one point.
Oh, was he?
And he was, as soon as his duties were done.
Yes.
He's out of here. So I think he's I think it's after the gold medal. I have to go back and listen to it on the free iHeartRadio app. But yes, I know he's involved in something.
I gotcha. Is there a bowl game going on tonight? Are there any more meaningless bowl games still playing? I'm looking at some highlights, but I can't tell if it's live. No, this looks like must be some kind of tape. By the way, there's a lot of head coaching openings in the National Football League.
Seriously.
And there's enough where you'd think somebody would want to take a look at Brian Flores. Now, of course, we all know about the complications with him, that he's got that ongoing lawsuit, and whether that's going to get in the way, unfortunately, of him having an opportunity to get another head coaching job. But there's enough of them, including our guy, Kevin Stefanski, who I believe was twice the NFL Coach of the Year as recently as 2023. What's the moral of that story? When you screw up the quarterback position, even if it's beyond your control, you ain't going to make it. You're not going to be able to survive as a National Football League head coach. And their quarterback situation makes our quarterback situation look relatively normal and even appealing. Thanks for listening. Thanks for texting. Thank you indeed for watching. We will talk to you again tomorrow beginning at 3 o'clock right here on The Fan.
Come on.
Have you consumed marijuana?
I'll be there whenever you want me. I'll be there whenever you need me.
It's horrific.
I'll be there. I'll